Hello, I'd like to talk with you today about journal RSS feeds on Moodle, and I'm Philip Dawson from the Office of the Pro-Vice Chancellor Learning and Teaching at Monash University. So, our goal at the end of this is to have a block on our Moodle site that displays the latest research from a key journal or database or whatever from your field. So you can see here is one I cooked up earlier. This is live on my current Moodle site for my unit Principles and Practices of Effective Teaching at Monash, and I have just titles and summaries of journal articles from higher education. So this is a way for me to make it clear up to the minute that this field that I'm trying to teach people about is changing and moving, and there's research happening all the time. There's new stuff in this block every day. So a little bit first about RSS, which is the mechanism we're going to use to make this happen. RSS stands for really simple syndication. It's usually used for news feeds, so you might have a Google Reader, which is a news reader, set up to access a combination of The Age, the gossip blog Perez Hilton, and the humour blog Fail blog. And you might be using Google Reader to read these various news sources, and whenever there's a new article, Google Reader shows you that new article. Journals use the same mechanism to provide you with a feed of the up-to-the-minute stuff they are releasing. So journals update these RSS feeds each time they've got a new article. Some databases provide them too. So being an education researcher, one of the big databases in my field is ERIC, which is the Education Resources Information Center from the US government. And I can set up an RSS feed that'll show me all of the latest higher education research up to the minute when it's released. So these are pretty handy things, and Moodle can show us a summary. So we start off by working through how to find RSS feeds, because sometimes these can be a bit tricky. The journal I'm the editor of, which is the Journal of Peer Learning, has a nice button there, a nice RSS button. Now if you click that, you might get something that's not really human readable. It's a file for an RSS reader, like the block we're going to add to our Moodle site. Over here on the right, you'll see the RSS feed. I believe this is from the journal Review of Educational Research. So this is on like the front page of that journal. And down here you'll see even the Australian newspaper The Age has an RSS feed. You could use any of these feeds or others you find online in your Moodle block. And the other thing we're going to do is look at setting up an RSS block. So like everything else we do on Moodle, we start out by turning editing on. We're adding a block, so we use the Add a Block tool. The particular block we're adding is Remote RSS Feed, and we're going to click that pen to change what the RSS feed does. We're going to have to add the feed and then select it, and that's about it. This shouldn't take us very long. So I'll now just jump out of here and I'll go into my web browser. So here's my unit live. You'll see I've got all sorts of crazy stuff going on here, and you'll see I actually have this block here. Now I'm going to first find myself an RSS feed. So I'm going to go to one of my favourite education journals, which is the Review of Educational Research. Here's that link there for RSS feed. You see, this journal provides me with a bunch of different RSS feeds. I would like current issue only because I want just the latest stuff. And you'll see this file looks rather meaningless. We can see some English words in there. We can also see a bunch of machine readable stuff. I'm going to copy the URL. I'm on a Mac, I'm right clicking. So now I've got that URL copied to the clipboard. I'm going to go into my Moodle and turn editing on. Scroll down, I've got a lot of blocks here. Add a block, remote RSS feeds. I'm now going to use the pen tool to edit that block. Okay, so you see that there are actually a few RSS feeds already here. This is a tool I like to play with, but let's say I'm adding this for the first time. I go add edit. I now have to add a new feed, and I'm going to put the URL of that feed there. I'm going to paste that in there. Great. I can give it a custom title, so I might call it something like current issue of RER. I'm hoping my students know what RER is. It's the Review of Educational Research. And I'm going to go add a new feed. Okay, so now on my list of all of the RSS feeds here, I've got, where are we? Current issue of RER, right there. Fantastic. So if I click it, I can see, yep, this looks kind of right. I'm going to go back now. Now I'm going to go back to my main site. I have a bit of trouble sometimes configuring this block, so I'd like to go back to its main configuration page this way. Might seem clunky, but I've got an error every now and then. So now I can pick on my remote newsfeed block current issue of RER. I would like to display each link's description, so that is usually the abstract or a few words of the abstract for the article. Give my students a bit more of an idea of what the article is before they click through. So I've chosen to display each link's description. I've picked the feed I'm after. Let's save changes and see what we get. Okay, great. Here we are, current issue of RER, and we have some journal articles. So if one of my students wants to go through to this, they go straight through to the article page. So this is fantastic. This is what I want. I want them to see that this is a field that's always changing. You can click straight through, get to articles. Fantastic. I'm going to take this a step further now. I'm going to make a database search RSS feed and use that on my Moodle. So I'm going to go to ERIC, which is a massive education database. I've got a search here for higher education in quotes. Here we go. 340,000 results, and these are being updated very often. Okay, now I'm going to make an RSS feed, so I found my RSS feed button. Great. So it's telling me copy this address into my RSS reader, so I'll do that. So as with before, go onto my Moodle site, editing's still on. I'm going to replace it here. So I use the pen tool to edit it, add edit feeds, add a new feed, put the URL in, and I'll give it a title like latest higher education research. Great. So I've added the feed now. I've got to go in and tell the block to use that particular feed. Because currently it's still showing the current issue of RER. So I want latest higher education research. And here we go. Latest higher education research. I've got an article here, I've got a summary. I can click through. See the database page for it. So, I'll just run over those steps again. I had to find the RSS icon copy that to the clipboard, and go through this process of turning editing on, adding a remote RSS feed block, adding the particular feed to it, selecting that feed. So that's Journal RSS feeds on Moodle. I hope you find it as useful as I have. Thanks a lot.